Carl Panzram literally beat a guard to death just for, quote, being annoying, and that's not even close to the worst thing he did, let alone the worst thing in this video. Stay tuned for this terrifying list of the scariest inmates in human history. Rodney Alcala. Rodney Alcala was a murderer convicted of killing 5 women in the 1970s, but he admitted to 34 more. With modern evidence, authorities believe his body count exceeds 140. In 1978, smack in the middle of his murder spree, Rodney somehow ended up on a game show called The Dating Game. The show centered around one woman blindly asking 3 men questions. Whoever's answers she liked most would win a date with her. On the show, Rodney was introduced as a photographer, which is horrifying because later, authorities discovered that he would pretend to be a photographer to lure in victims. What's even more messed up is Rodney actually won the show. During the show, she asked him, "What's the best time?" And Rodney said, "Nighttime, because night is the only time there is. And night is when things get really good." Luckily for the woman, she eventually didn't go on a date with him because, quote, he was creepy. That's some real intuition right there.
So this motherfucker killed over 100+ women. I mean, look at him. Look at him. He do look like a playboy low-key, though. I ain't even gonna cap. So back in them days, he was the guy that was fly and getting all the girls, I bet. Because how the fuck he ain't killed and been with that many women, you know what I'm saying? His agenda definitely was all fucked up in life because that's just not the way to be. Want to go out here, hurt people, you know what I'm saying, on some crazy, sick, satanic type shit, you know, and man.
Intuition right there.
Man.
Johann Jack Unterweger. Johann Unterweger was an Austrian serial killer known as the Underwear Strangler. Why? Because in 1974, he tragically strangled a woman to death with her own underwear. From there, he would repeat this act over 40 times. Johann was finally caught in Los Angeles and sent to prison. However, incredibly, he was able to start a lobbying campaign that led to his release on parole in 1990. He claimed to have been rehabilitated. Believe it or not, after his release, Jack became a minor celebrity and even worked as a playwright, a journalist, and wrote children's stories. Unfortunately, while flaunting as the poster child for rehabilitation, he continued to murder innocent women. He was sent back to prison and hanged himself before being convicted of 9 more murders.
Now, this guy right here, how in the fuck his little slanted, crooked-mouthed ass was out here strangling women, you know, with they underwear? Like, that's just fucking weird as hell. Who in the world will be strangling women with their underwear? You know what I'm saying? For the simple fact, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder what the fuck these people be thinking about, but then there's other times I'm happy I don't know what the fuck these people be thinking about. But then I wonder how his body movement was, how his language was when he was out here doing all the stuff that he was doing to these females. And then I forgot to add another thing that topped it off with this guy. He was such a pussy that he couldn't even wait to stand trial. You know what I'm saying? For murdering all those people. Plus, he murdered 9 extra women. Now, you know you pussy when you take your own life. That's all I'm saying. Anybody who can't sit there and take the punishment and get what they supposed to get for all that dumb shit they done, and you decide to take your life this way, I mean, I heard there's a place for people like this. So hopefully, you know, he's being dealt with wherever his soul went.
Carl Panzram. Carl Panzram is a living nightmare that terrorized everyone he came across. At his arrest, he had 5 confirmed murders, confessed to 21, and was suspected of hundreds more. This guy's first run-in with the law was a drunk and disorderly charge at 8 years old. After dozens of prison stints and 61 consecutive days in solitary confinement, Panzram was rearrested for stealing jewelry. Which is ironic because he had actually just committed a countrywide murder spree that was so gruesome, we can't even go over it in this video. While being interrogated, he confessed to murdering 3 boys just that month. And while serving a 25-year sentence for those murders, beat a guard to death with an iron bar because he annoyed him. Panzram was infamous for having almost superhuman strength. He was given the death penalty and denied any chance to appeal. Upon being hanged, his last words were, "Hurry it up, you Hoosier bastard. I could kill a dozen men while you're screwing around."
Hey, all I gotta say is, if this motherfucker was doing what he was doing at 8 years old, and nobody was trying to keep his mind and see what the fuck kind of kid he was, what did they grow up to think he was gonna be? You know what I'm saying? If he getting drunk and shit at 7 and 6, he only got caught at 8. You know? I mean, it amazes me how some people notice certain signs but are afraid to admit it or say something because it's their own kid or whatever the situation or occurrence may be. Instead of saying something or trying to get someone help, they just rub it off like, oh, they're a kid or they're this, not knowing they could be emotionally and mentally going through something. So that's one crazy thing I feel a lot of people miss. And I'm going to tell anybody exactly how it is. If it's my kid, my mama, anybody, you know, because you're not going to get a fake story from me. I'm just going to tell you what you probably don't want to hear, but I'm going to do it in the most respectful way I can, because if you love somebody or care about people and y'all know how fucked up it is and people are mentally, you know, the way who they are. Hey, when they was about to hang him, he was talking shit about how many more people he could have killed. So mentally, you kind of knew exactly what type of time he was on throughout his life. And my thing is with these psycho-ass people, how the fuck do they work and still maintain a life and shit if they out here doing all these murders? That shit is something I never understood. Like, you're around a whole bunch of people, but
wait a minute. Look.
Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson is one of Britain's most notorious inmates, if not the most notorious. After a few robberies as a teen, Bronson was sent to prison in Liverpool, only to be immediately transferred after beating 2 inmates within an inch of their lives. And things were just getting started. No matter what the cops did, they just couldn't stop this powerhouse of a man. Bronson was put into solitary confinement, but he liked it. He was later thrown into several psychiatric facilities, but continued to attack other patients with sauce bottles. They moved him to a maximum security prison, but couldn't stop him from trying to punch guards. He was a boxer after all. He staged rooftop protests, strangled the governor of Wormwood Scrubs, and ran a riot while butt naked. And that's only half of his prison career. Today, Charles Bronson remains in jail. Luckily for us.
I ain't got too much to say about this because this dude had a successful career, or at least a good career that was making him money, and he decided to not be a boxer and to want to kill and hurt innocent people. Even fucking guards. You cannot be in prison trying to hurt guards and any type of law enforcement. That's just really fucked up to be thinking like that. And it's really fucked up to be thinking about hurting any human flesh or any living thing, you know what I'm saying? Because it's all part of this world and plays an important role some kind of way. So I ain't got too much to say about this dude.
Luckily for us. Thomas Silverstein. Thomas Silverstein is an American criminal who spent over 42 years in prison. While serving a 15-year sentence for armed robbery, Silverstein joined the Aryan Brotherhood and murdered 4 separate people, one of which was a corrections officer named Merle Klutz. The murder of Klutz made the other guards hate Silverstein so much that they put him in a specially designed cell with a no human contact status. One prison official said, "We have no choice but to make his life a living hell." At the time of his death in 2019, Silverstein held the world record for most time spent in solitary confinement. Good for him.
So this motherfucker, he looked like he been in prison for a long ass time. Look at him. Like he old as hell. He looked like one of them old ass dudes that's probably been there for like 90 years. And he fucking 110. It just his ass been concealed for so goddamn long. Like they fucking damn, I can't even think of the word I'm trying to say. But anyway, they fucking dry stored his ass is what I'm trying to say. They vacuum sealed. That's what I'm looking for. They vacuum sealed his ass in prison. He really 105 though. But since his ass was vacuum sealed with no human contact, I mean, god damn, I couldn't even think what the mind it went through to not be able to see the light, be able to feel a human touch, fucking go up to a tree, be able to feel an actual, fresh air. I mean, damn.
Good for him. John Mongrel. John Mongrel was a notorious gang leader imprisoned at Pollsmoor Maximum Security Prison in South Africa, aka one of the worst prisons in the world. Mongrel entered the prison at the tender age of 14 and quickly realized that gang life was made for him. At the time, the ruling gang of the prison was called the Numbers. Before his 15th birthday, he stabbed his cellmate through the heart to try to climb the ranks. It is believed that John was responsible for over a whopping 1,000 deaths during his 30-year imprisonment. Famous journalist Ross Kemp said that Mongrel was the scariest man he'd ever met, and the memory of his breath will stay with me for a long time. It smelled like a toad killed, left out in the sun. John Mongrel passed away in 2014.
I was about to say, man. Now, I'm not trying to say nothing funny, because both of my kids' moms isn't black. I'm just going to say that. But primarily these crazy motherfuckers that they've been showing lately, and it's just one brother, and he live in South Africa. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. Like, bro, what the fuck? The type of people that we're watching is seeing these murders and how they, thought process was. It's crazy. But this dude so far, he got over 1,000. So, I mean, he got them all topped if he was to group them together. But he chose to be in that gang life. So I guess that's how it is. I don't want to be affiliated and no part of a gang or nothing. But at the same time, some people with that mind frame, I guess this is how they think. I guess this is what they do. I don't know.
Grady Franklin Stiles Jr. Grady Franklin Stiles Jr. is a deeply disturbed individual. He was born with a rare genetic condition that caused his hands to look like lobster claws, so he joined the carnival at 7 years old. There, he adopted the title Lobster Boy. As he aged, Stiles became an erratic and angry alcoholic that would regularly abuse his family. When his daughter got married, he got jealous and shot her husband to death. According to Stiles' son, he overheard his mom say something needs to be done to a neighbor. A few minutes later, while Stiles was smoking a cigarette on the couch, the neighbor wandered in and shot him in the head twice. Stiles was so hated that only 10 people showed up to his funeral and nobody volunteered to carry the coffin.
Now, Lobster Boy, Crab Man, Lobster Claw. Man, look at them fucking hands, though. I feel bad for him in school because I know, you know how asshole kids can be. And his fucking hands is like, man, don't touch me. But he looked like one of them type of guys who fuck his kids, which is sick as fuck. And them hands, yeah, don't fucking touch me. Hey, at least he can grab his food easy, you know. I don't know how he uses utensils and shit, but at the same time, yeah, that's just fucking nasty.
Mitchell Blair. Now this one's truly chilling. In 2015, on the eastern side of Detroit, Mitchell Blair and her 4 children were served with an eviction notice. Mitchell wasn't home, so the authorities went inside. What they found sent ripples through the community forever. In a deep freezer, they discovered 2 bodies. An autopsy would later reveal that they were 2 of her children, ages 9 and 13, and both of them had been in there for years. Mitchell believed those 2 children were abusing another one of her children, so she ended their lives. While in prison, an interviewer asked if she could acknowledge that murder wasn't her only option. She simply said there were no other options. She's currently serving life without parole. Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader, known as the BTK Killer, was one of the worst and most prolific serial killers in American history. Between 1974 and 1991, he took the lives of at least 10 people in Kansas, including 4 members of his own family. After each murder, he'd wear their clothes and put on a mask so he could pretend to be them. Much like the Zodiac Killer, he'd taunt the police by writing cryptic notes and messages, most of them just calling the cops dumb. Fortunately for us, his ego would be his downfall. In 2005, he sent the police a floppy disk with more taunts. They were able to extract a deleted file from the disk that contained details about his church. Because yeah, He was an avid churchgoer. In the end, he was found guilty of 10 murders and sentenced to 175 years without parole. He was kept in solitary confinement with 1 hour a day for exercise and 3 showers a week. In 2006, he was allowed to read magazines, listen to the radio, and watch TV for good behavior.
Now, it said I got to end it off with Dennis Rader. It's sad to know this dude was in the church heavy and was convicted of 10 murders and actually sent encrypted floppy disks to the police to taunt them on how he did this and they can't catch him. I mean, 175 years with no parole is a hell of enough time for somebody like him. For the simple fact the devil was sitting in the church. I mean, we all have our own demons and shit, but to kill somebody, that's a whole different demon. I might mess with who I mess with, but I'm not on no shit like that type of demon. So 175 years, I think anybody who think like that, that is the minimum sentence they should get if they don't get the death penalty. And I think the same shit for rapists too. That's what they should do to them.